And now I hand it over to Mrs. Seetha Murty ji. Welcome, ma'am, and over to you now.
Thank you, Gaurav. Good evening, everybody. And to all those who joined today, today is a very auspicious day in many states of India. For us in Telangana and Andhra, it's the New Year's Day, Ugadi. So when Gaurav asked me if I could do it on the 6th, which is Saturday, I was preoccupied with the commitment of doing an IB workshop in Mumbai. So I conveyed my regrets. Then he gave me this as the option. I can't say no to Gaurav. But I told him, you want me to work on a festival day, you're a slave driver. But he still opted to be a slave driver, and that's how I'm here. But it's an absolute pleasure to interact with the IPN community, because nowhere I've seen so much of eagerness to learn, so much of readiness to participate in events and take away whatever one can take for the benefit of the school community that one works with. And maybe at another level, for the benefit of individual, personal, and professional growth. So I have great regards for the IPN community. And of course, I always admire how this young man called Gaurav Yadav can drive this entire community with so much of passion, so much of enthusiasm, sincerity, and of course, I think consistency. I've known him for 4 years now, and I am amazed at the pace with which he takes this community forward. So what do I have to say about my top 10 priorities? Thanks, Gaurav, for narrowing down the number here. It doesn't have to be 10, it can be 1, 2, 3. But as the head of the school, I have 5 campuses and I'm responsible for thousands of children, about 500-600 teachers in my community. First, I look at my priority as me. Am I doing the right thing or not? So I always look inward before I work with my team or with the world around me, because everything begins with me. The way I talk, the way I react, the way I respond, and the way I probably interact, everything depends on the way I talk to them. So in this context, I'd like to bring a book that has been my Bible for the last 22 years now. In 2002, a family friend of mine, actually she's my mother's friend, younger to my mother, much older to me, but so she's a friend also. She's no more now, but she gifted this book to me, 2002 precisely. I don't know, because of the mirror reflection, whether you can read it properly or not, but the name of the book is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. So it's quite a thick book, okay? Has lots of pages. But this version is not available in the market now. This big version with big pages and slightly bigger font was published in 1992, the first publication of this book, by the way. After that, the book got smaller in size, and you don't get the size anymore. I had the privilege of reading this book exclusively and extensively when we relocated to Hyderabad in 2003, and I was getting my apartment renovated. I had nothing else to do other than sitting in a wheelchair, rocking chair, in a rocking chair, and watching over all the men who were renovating my apartment. Morning, my husband would go to work, give some instructions to these people, come back in the evening to check whether they were followed. Now begins the story of me in that situation, okay? I always wanted the colors of the walls to be in a particular way, the windowsills to be in a particular way, or the door frame to be in a particular way. While the arguments between me and my husband would invariably end up in some kind of conflict between the two of us at the end of each day during this renovation phase, during the daytime, I would read this book. So within 2 weeks, when I read the first habit, be proactive, okay? So reading is not just for reading, right? I think people like us who are already heading schools and who are responsible for so many people, the parents, the teachers, the students, When I started reading, I started understanding the meaning of what is being proactive. Being proactive is not about being reactive. It's about choosing your response. Because between your stimulus and response, you have a choice. You have an ability to choose your response. So I tried it on myself. A second week of a renovation mission, I thought, okay, what is it? Why am I ending up with conflicts every day with my husband? Okay, it's only a color on the wall. How does it make a difference? Because my peace of mind is more important than the color on the wall. Okay. So that day, evening, when he returned, I told him that it's okay, whatever color you want, let's go ahead with it. And you won't believe it. He also changed. No, 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 it's okay. Whatever color you want, we'll go ahead with it. Okay? That was the first experience of me choosing my response because I wanted peace more than conflict. And from then began everything. So I read a story in the same habit number 1 in this book under Be Proactive about Dr. Viktor Frankl. Everybody should read the books written by him. You should know who is Viktor Frankl. He's someone who developed a theory called logotherapy. Now, what does logotherapy mean? It again consolidates this theory that between your stimulus and your response, you have the ability to choose. Now, this man was a prisoner of war in the Nazi camp, Dr. Viktor Frankl. He's a Jewish psychologist. In front of his eyes, his parents were physically tortured, brutally tortured, and he couldn't do anything because he was tied to a pole. And he would scream and scream. The more he would scream, the Nazis would inflict more pain on his parents. By 4th or 5th day, he realized that the more I'm responding, it is giving a fodder to these Nazi soldiers and they're troubling my parents more. Since I can't do anything, I can't save them. And with my reactions, I'm aggravating the situation. Let me just be quiet. He switched off his mind because he has no control over the situation now. When he switched off his mind, when he stopped responding, the torturers did not find it exciting to torture the old people anymore. Anyway, within a few days, the old people died. Then came the turn of his wife and daughter. Now you can imagine what kind of tortures can be meted out to two women. They did everything, the Nazi soldiers. Now this man told himself, if I am reacting more, they are torturing them more. So let me choose my response. So he chose his response by just closing his eyes, not doing anything, because there's something called influence. He has an influence over him. He has no influence over the situation. He has no control over the situation. So he told himself, I'm not going to respond. There's nothing I can do. Let me switch off my mind from what is happening in front of me. Within a few days, the wife and the daughter died. Now came the turn of this man. Now, until now, he could control his responses by choosing not to respond to the situation. Now comes a physical torture on himself. Now, how will he not respond to it? So they started extracting his nails, driving nails in his toes, and all kinds of, you can imagine what kind of things they would have done. By day 2, he told himself, they can inflict physical pain on me, but between the stimulus that the pain that they're causing and the acknowledgement that I register about my pain, I have a choice. I will not respond to this pain. He survived. He survived the entire stay in the Nazi camp. He came out alive and he floated this theory called logotherapy, where he taught people that whether it is physical or emotional or mental, any kind of stimulus, you have a control. You have a choice how you want to respond to the situation. So when I read this during those 2, 3 weeks and 4 weeks of renovation that we went through, I thought this is something I need to learn. And I first experimented this on on my dentist chair. I sat on the chair, you know what happens when you sit in front of a dentist, okay? Especially if it's a treatment without anesthesia. Now I told myself, okay, Dr. Viktor Frankl could survive by telling himself that he will not acknowledge the mental pain or the physical pain. And he came out alive. So I tried it on myself. I'm not saying I'm a saint, but I tried it on myself by choosing the response, by controlling the pain that I was feeling. In fact, I told myself, I'm not acknowledging the pain, whatever is happening. From then, logotherapy has been my way of healing myself. Why I gave you such a long story is, the first habit of Dr. Stephen Covey is be proactive. Because as the heads of schools, we'll have multiple situations, the way parents come and talk to us, the way students may behave in the school, the way teachers may suddenly fail us, okay? In multiple ways, you are encountering challenges day after day. But how do you respond to that situation? For ages now and today too, I would say the same thing. As the heads of schools, I think we need to be proactive, never be reactive about anything. And when you are proactive, your priorities will fall into place. That this is what I want to do. This is the clarity that I have to give to my team. This is how we go forward. So that's the first habit which I learned and cultivated within myself, and helped my teachers, my team also to tell me that when you want to come and give me a feedback or feed forward, don't give me a reactive feedback. Tell me the situation the way it happened. Don't exaggerate. Don't add your emotions to it. And don't be agitated about anything. Just report the incident the way it happened, because it'll help me understand it without somebody's emotional baggage on the whole situation. So if I have to say, my top priority would be, as a head of a school, be proactive is something that all of us have to do, and help our teams to develop being proactive and not being reactive. But how is it related to our everyday work? I'll come to that part too. Now comes this second habit, which Dr. Covey says, begin with an end in mind. 2024-2025 academic year. Now I started looking at what is it that I want to see by year 2025. March 2025, when we conclude our school year, what is it I want to see? But for that, I have to take you back to a little past. All of us have been victims of 2021, 21, 22 years. When children came back to school 22, 23, everything was about first aid. You know, whatever they missed out, we tried to do a first aid education to make sure that first is the social life is compensated. Second is the self-management skills compensated. Then came the entire process of teaching and learning, the rigor and the discipline of learning, which went missing in those 2 years, had to be brought back. So for me, 22-23 also went in a kind of compensatory model that we created in the schools. 23-24 has been a kind of a fulfilling, kind of a fairly good school year, I would say. But you know, they started noticing something in not only in urban schools, in many suburban schools, rural schools. Children's behavior, whichever age group it may be, has changed a lot. Their language changed a lot. Their thoughts have changed a lot, not only because of COVID, because generation is changing too fast. A lot of selfishness in children, a lot of non-empathetic attitude that I started noticing. And most of all, what worries me is their foul language. What worries me is not just the foul language, by the way, that because of the COVID year, they got a license to get onto the internet without anybody checking on them. And now that license to free passage to the internet expose them to everything that's undesirable, everything that could actually damage their innocence of their growing years, the beauty of their growing years, everything has gone. I would say, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I'm saying this. About 70% of the children in our schools today have seen porn. 70% of the children in our schools today, from the age of grade 3 and above, use foul language. The F word is the most common thing, and they don't think it is wrong. And they're so smart, they don't use it at home. They're so smart, they don't use it in the presence of the teacher. But the other world that they live only with this language. This is what I observed in 23-24 school year. So my top priority for 2024-25 is, how do I work on this? Should I be reactive? Should I be proactive? What kind of environment, what kind of influences should I bring into the school for them to see the futility of using such language? For them to see that, there is no hurry to watch porn. There is no hurry to get into relationships, because there's enough time ahead. So what do I do for that? So begin with an end in mind. This year, my top priority is, how do I make sure that these children see that it is a character that they are bringing down when they're using the foul language. It is a character that they may get diluted if they're watching all undesirable things on the internet, and that it is a character that should help them restrain themselves from engaging on such futile activities. So my top priority, begin with an end in mind, for 2024-25 year is, all these unpleasant things that this generation is afflicted with, I need to work on them. So I have started work already since January. For the beginning, what I've done, I have to share with all of you. For every age group, what are the cartoons they watch? Who are their favorite role models? What are the sports they watch? So we did a very extensive research on it. And then we started educating the parents first, because many parents think that my child is watching a cartoon, I'm happy. But you know that many cartoons teach children how to lie to parents. Some cartoons teach how to escape from homework. Children in pre-primary, grade 1, 2, 3, parents may be thinking, my child doesn't watch anything unnecessary, only cartoons. But what are the cartoon characters teaching? I did a thorough, systematic study on that. Then comes, what kind of books do they read? What kind of role models do they have? I was very surprised when I heard from grade 7 to 12, at least 40% of the students have told, I forget the name of the character, somebody from the Western world, he is their role model. And that guy turns out to be a womanizer, a YouTube influencer who uses foul language extensively, and for whom life is all about wearing fancy clothes, speaking all anti-establishment things. For these children, he's a role model. So all this data I have collected now. Now we are looking at, how do we create discussions and conversations about understanding why, in spite of watching loving Korean music or watching K-drama, that we are Indian, we are in India, and that we live in Indian families, that these things don't really blend with the family culture that we grow up with. So this is my mission for 24-25 year. For the second habit that I talked about, begin with an end in mind. Now I'll take you to the third habit. Third habit is always about, these first three habits that I'm talking about are largely about you personally. We as individuals and as professionals, how do we make sure that we are calm and we are clear about what is it that we want to do in our roles as the heads of institutions. So the third habit is, put first things first. Okay, I like it. Put first things first. Last things can't be first. Second last thing can't be first, but the first thing has to be first. So I always ask myself, in a school year, what is the first thing? Let's all remember one thing. Schools are primarily here to ensure that children acquire some knowledge and skills. which will be useful to them today and tomorrow. It's not just about tomorrow. It should be useful today also. So when I look at put first things first, I look at what are the first things for my early years children? What are the first things for my adolescents and the preteens? And what are the first things for my teenagers? And how will my teachers know that? So that is where I started working with my teachers on. If my teachers are working with the teenagers, say from grade 8 upwards, okay, we all sat down, we went on the internet together, and we explored what are the different blogs and information that is available to understand teenagers in India. Okay, teenagers in India are different from teenagers in any other part of the world. Why? Teenagers are growing up in Indian families, but listening to Western music or Korean music, watching everything that is Hollywood, playing video games which are actually creating an aggressive trait in them. So how do you understand them? How do you get them on board for them to know that this is the first thing for me that I have to learn? I need to tell you that these teenagers have got very fragile mindsets. One of my 8th grader, 3 years back, this is the second year of COVID, December of 2021. Because during those 2 years, other than school hours, he was addicted to video games. There isn't much the parents could do. And that Sunday morning, December Sunday morning 2021, the mother felt, how long will you sit on the video game? And she just went and took away his phone and switched off the phone. They live on the 5th floor, the top floor of their apartment building. He just walked up to the terrace and jumped down from there and killed himself. Otherwise, a very calm, very balanced boy, very intelligent, very loving brother to his younger sister, very helpful son to his parents. Everything was right about him. But this fragility that he had, that just because the mother had taken away the phone while he was playing with the video game, he didn't hesitate a minute. All he did was walked out of the door, went up, walked up, he didn't take the lift, he walked up to the terrace and jumped down. Okay, that incident still plays in my mind as to what could have made him think that just this rebuff here can make him kill himself. The work that we are doing now, all of us in the school, is why are they so fragile? Why are the girls so fragile and the boys so fragile? Why are they so hung up with their looks and their complexion? And why are they having everything that is unimportant as a top priority? First thing all of us we are doing is we're doing a survey on it. We're doing a study on it. We need a data. We are talking to the parents and collecting data from them. How do the children behave at home? What are you doing? How are the interactions at home? Now, with this data, we will start working on what kind of conversations we should have with children in the school so that we don't lose a generation. So that's my third priority. Okay. So I told you about be proactive, begin with an end in mind, put first things first. These 3 habits, while Dr. Stephen Covey talks about, these are for your personal victory. But I use them for my personal victory and maybe not professional victory, but for preserving, protecting a generation of children from losing who they are. They really don't know who they are. They want to be what their friends want them to be. So we are working on that. So I would say, anybody can teach. By the way, there's so many cram schools in India. We specialize in that. Our math, our science, our social, and our languages can be taught in 3 months of a school year. We don't have to stretch it for the entire school year. We can teach them in 3 months. But this entire thing about who they are, what they can be, how they can organize themselves, how they can express themselves, these are more important to me than anything else. Because even if my math teacher doesn't teach math, Khan Academy can teach very well. But Khan Academy cannot interact with this teenager or with that earlier child on how to be having self-respect, self-worth, and self-efficacy. These are my priorities right now, because this entire generation, I'm so worried, all age groups. There was that little boy, barely 7, 8 year old, who comes to me and tells me that, ma'am, everybody is saying that girl has a crush on me in the bus. Now I asked him, what do you mean by crush? So he said something like, love shove, ma'am. This is a 7, 8 year old. I don't really blame him, because children are the products of the environment they're growing up in. Okay, from Netflix to Amazon Prime to the horrible movies that they see along with their parents, because I sometimes pity the parents also. They also have one life. They can't possibly sacrifice everything for their children and look at themselves as only, uh, what should I say, only responsible adults for taking care of their children. So a lot of parent orientations and parenting workshops is something that I have been doing, but now I have a new mission that, parenting, bringing up children at a time when the social media and the negative influences are stronger than parents in the school. What do we have to do together? So for me, the 2024-25 school year is all about protecting and preserving this generation from losing who they are. There's another book that I wanted to talk about. This is Upstream by Dan Heath. Trust me, everybody should have this book in their personal library. This book is all about how do you prevent a situation from happening, and how many wonderful case studies he gives. He starts with an incident where two people are sitting on a riverbank, and suddenly they start seeing one child from the upstream coming down, almost, drowning in the river. So before they could save the first child, second child, then the third child. So one of the persons who's sitting there, he goes upstream to see who is it who's pushing the children down. Because, he wants to prevent it from before it happens, not keep saving children from drowning. I think that is what, for me, this year is all about. 2024-2025 year is all about how do we protect this generation from losing track. When I'm saying this, I'm in Hyderabad. It doesn't mean it's happening only in urban schools. I was there the other day in Jamshedpur. The kind of clientele that comes to those group of schools over there are not so urban, but their exposure is the same as anybody in Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, thanks to internet, YouTube, okay, Instagram. Everybody's language, everybody's diversion and distraction are, unfortunately, there's unity in diversity in a negative way here now. So I think all of us have to educate the parents, educate our teachers first, because if our teachers speak a language which the children don't connect to, we are losing the plot. So I think, Gaurav, I would say these are the top 3 priorities that I have. Be proactive, begin with an end in mind, put first things first, because this generation has to be preserved for their own sake and for our own sake also. There's something selfish here. When I grow old, I don't want to see these people running the world, these shallow people running the world, who think that, that horrible man out there is a role model, that, a cartoon teaches them how to escape from homework or lie to the parent. And parents are not even aware that by giving a smartphone, they're thinking they're indulging children, or they're getting their peace of mind, but they're actually poisoning a generation of people. So on that note, I think I'll take a pause over here to say that all of us have this collective responsibility in India, particularly. You know why I'm stressing on this fact of India repeatedly? The value system that we have got in our country for centuries together cannot be diluted by any K-pop or K-drama. I love watching K-drama, but doesn't mean, as an adult, I may not get carried away, but that adolescent may get carried away. And that's the reason I think all of us have to have a collective mission of working upstream by making sure what is the social life of our students, what are the abilities of our teachers, how do we work with our parents. That's all it is.
Wonderful, wonderful. Absolutely. In fact, I will use the word refreshing for a very simple
Okay.
reason that I was not listening to one more NEP discussion, that NEP is my priority. NCF implementation is my priority. So that's a refreshing part to begin with. Thank you very much, Murty ma'am, because obviously I think I must show this. This is the book you gifted me. It is right here with me, which is
Yeah.
and in fact,
Don't
I'm
sprint
recommending
with it.
this to everybody. It's a fabulous book.
Yeah.
Me, Kalpana, my wife is in fact also reading the same book, and they are loving it.
Wonderful.
And I have just added another upstream, and I think the other one which you told us. So very refreshing, absolutely pleasant. Obviously, always listening to you. You have that very calm demeanor as well, so that adds to the entire gravitas. So thank you very much. In fact, now I will open up the house for Q&A. That's the format as we follow. Please, if you have any observation or you have any question for Mrs. Murty, please give us a virtual show of hand. We'll help you unmute, and then you can ask your question. Right. So we have enough time right now. We have around 27 odd minutes to our official close. So we'll do this in this particular time. Right. My only request will be that we have to keep our questions or observations on our core theme. Okay. And also, if you can come on the video, please do come on the video. We'll get to know you better, and then you can ask your question or observation. In the meantime, since everybody is, I believe, putting their comments, etc., I have a question, Mrs. Murty, for you. So, and I think Vikrant, we can begin with you. Then I can ask my question. Over to you, Vikrant.
Sure.
Yeah. Vikrant, you can ask your question. Then I will ask my question. Go ahead.
Yeah, Gaurav, I'm just driving right now. When you finish your question, I'll be at my destination.
No problem. No
continue.
problem.
I'll just ask.
No problem. Sure. So my question, Ms. Murty, was because we understand you travel extensively, you train extensively, and obviously you have actually the best of both the worlds. That's the way I put it. You have run a CBSE school, you run an IB school as well, right? So you see both the spectrum. My question is very fundamental. How are you seeing this entire debate around and with a very particular lens of educator, AI and its impact? Or how should educators embrace this entire, what I call metamorphosis, which is happening right now around technology and into education? What are your, very broad level thoughts on it, basically? How are you looking at this? Yeah.
Okay, because you raised this very important word called technology. Okay, so I need to tell you, way back in 2010, I watched this very popular TED talk by Professor Sugata Mitra. Okay, he's a professor at University of Newcastle. He did a project, a research on, can children learn on their own? But however, to answer your question, his TED talk opens with a line. Technology cannot replace teachers, but teachers who don't know technology can be replaced. That was 2010. Now we are talking 14 years fast forward. Okay, we have the omnipresent word called ChatGPT. Now everybody's over talking about it. Okay, now people who are not engaging with ChatGPT might start feeling guilty that, oh my God, that they may have that FOMO, fear of missing out. Something's happening in the world, and I just want to tell everybody, you're not missing anything. First thing is that you are not missing anything if you are not using ChatGPT. Okay? But what you would miss probably is how others are using it. Now, in this context, I will recommend the TED Talk by Salman Khan, the founder of Khan Academy, about ChatGPT particularly. What he said in the last 1 or 2 minutes of his talk, I liked more than what he said before that. In the last 1 or 2 minutes, he says, there are so many players out there. If the good players like educationers don't make use of ChatGPT, the negative players and the bad players will take over, and then you will not know what to do after that. Okay. Because of that, I would say everybody sitting here should know what is ChatGPT. Should have that app on your phone. Because you need to know, you need to be smarter than your students. If you're not smarter than your students, they can take you for a ride. Okay. So to answer your question, Gaurav, technology is here to stay, whether you like it or not. ChatGPT and much advanced versions of those, AI tools are going to be here before you say Jack Robinson. Okay, they're going to be here. So I think as educators, if we have learned how to teach, we have to learn how to use the environment around us, the technology around us, to make sure that we are at par with everybody. So I think there's no compromise on that at all.
Oh, that's well said. I think in a way, it is underlining the fact that keep कहते ना अपने कदम से कदम मिला के चलिए और जो कारवां जिस तरफ जा रहा है उस तरफ आपको चलना पड़ेगा for that, right? So wonderful, fabulous. If that was my first question, Vikrant, you're ready to take the question? You want to take the question? Yeah. Go ahead. You will have to unmute yourself.
Hello, Gaurav. How are you? Thank you so much for arranging a wonderful talk by Seetha Murty, ma'am. Absolutely refreshing and very enlightening talk. I love to listen to your vision and mission for your students. Definitely, I was expecting 10 priorities for an educationist. If given a choice to you, write 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9, 10 in single word, what it will be, because 3 of them were very inspiring. And I would really like to know what are 4 to 10 in single word.
The rest of the 4, 7 habits. You want
okay. That's 7. Then again 3 are left. 8, 9, 10.
So Dr. Stephen Covey came up with the 8th habit after he wrote the 7 Habits book. He came up with the 8th habit a few years later. Okay, so I'll tell you the 8th habit. 8th habit is find your voice. Okay, when he says find your voice, all of us sitting here, don't let. I tell this. I'm the vice president of the IB Heads Association in India. I'm an IB workshop leader. I work for the IB, the International Baccalaureate Organization. I work for the CBSE. But I tell one thing, don't let CBSE or IB tell you what to do in your school. You decide what you want to do with the CBSE or the NEP or the NCF or the IB in your school, because you and your school context are more important than what the board says or some educational organization says. You have your voice. You have the circle of influence because your teachers, your parents, and your students, you are the community. You are the learning community here. So I would say my next priority would be find your voice. Don't let people put fear in you. You tell people that you are the professional here, you know what you're doing. I think that would be my next priority to everybody.
Super, fantastic. And I'll just introduce myself. I'm Vikrant Kapoor. I run Chain of School. I'm the founder and running school by the name of Angels Paradise. And I have been into, with a commitment to spread positivity. I have lakhs of followers on my Instagram channel. I daily post some reels and it's basically a screenplay, writing script and telling parents what is right path for their children. So I hope if you have time, you can just search Vikrant Kapoor on Instagram and
only thing is I'm not so much on Instagram, because
Instagram or YouTube anyway. Basically, what you wanted to say, I really believe in that, because education has been summed up to syllabus, getting fees, making 5-star hotel schools. So it has to be grooming the next generation. That is where the focus of everybody needs to come in. You rightly said, and thank you so much for bringing that alignment in everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vikrant. Vikrant is a very, very passionate educator. He's based in Amritsar. We met when we were in Amritsar, Mrs. Murty. So he's doing a fabulous job. Okay. Yes. So okay, Chitrakala ji. Over to you. Yes, you'll have to unmute yourself, please.
Good evening. Good to see you again, ma'am.
It's good to see you too.
And thank you, Gaurava. It was a wonderful talk that I enjoyed. The hard truth that you brought out, madam, actually it is hitting my heart, like how much we have to actually look into the teenagers today, because what you said, every day in and day out we are facing in school. Especially today, I had a case like that. A child, who's always addicted to internet, these games. What has happened? He's because a mother pulled out the phone from him, he has consumed his grandmother's tablets and he's in the hospital today. Believe it, when you were telling, it was actually squeezing my heart.
I can imagine.
As you say, no, we have to actually educate the parents on this. It's a very, very bitter truth that you have brought it out. All of us have to, what I always tell my teachers is, we have to change our strategies of understanding children better. Because what we are all stuck in a very old style, teaching and learning. We have to come out. As you said, we have to know what is technology to advise our children better. It was really good. This actually hit my head today. Thank you so much for bringing it out, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chandrakala ji. And obviously, we wish the boy or a girl very speedy recovery. This kind of episode should never happen to anybody. I mean, that's the thing we want to pray. Right? Very, very touching. Because, I mean, as you were speaking, Mrs. Murty, my two young daughters who are very much getting into this environment of watching K-pop or watching XYZ content, really, right? It is very, very difficult to really differentiate what is a good cartoon or what is a good game. I mean, it's again a dilemma in itself, because you feel they are playing a game, but it has a kind of addiction to it, or whatever we call it, example. So we'll also take care at our end as well. Right. So again, any observation, any question, if you have, we still have around 10-15 odd minutes, right? Please do so. Or if you can, anybody has anything to share or an experience of theirs, which you would like to share with all of us, please do so. In the meantime, I will again have one more question. So I will keep asking my question when nobody is asking question. Okay. So which is, in your underlining, I think when I was listening to you, Mrs. Murty, one thing which came very evident was the word, I believe, research. And I think you really emphasized that you all are backing all this through a proper research, and which I have always felt that at least maybe in our schooling system, teachers lack enough research, right? So how do we develop, if at all, any school leader today has to go back to their respective institution and bring this little, like a culture of developing research into not only just teachers, but it will rub off to the students eventually, if I may say, right? What are those fundamentals to this, basically? My question to you.
It begins with us, with the principals, the heads of schools. Everything, a culture begins from the top. Okay. And if we create that culture, whether it is for research or for learning or positivity, like I keep saying, heads of schools are like the climate changes in the school. You go with a smile, everybody's smiling that day. You don't smile and everybody is scared. Why is a head of school not smiling today? That's the kind of effect and influence we have in a school community. Imagine if we use it for the right purpose. So research is very important now, Gaurav, because how much can you talk based on assumptions?
Correct.
Or
absolutely.
Emotions? And then it becomes like you're talking in the midair. No, you need to have data. When teachers used to come to me saying that, oh, they're doing, I said, no, make a note of it. How many times and in what situations has a child used a word like this or reacted like this? These are very important. When parents also come to us, like there's one point that I'd like to bring here when you're working with parents. Okay, sensitize the parents on how are they bringing up their children. It's so important. The younger parents who are especially in the IT, okay, I don't know why I use that, but I think I have noticed this with IT community, the younger parents, the way they're bringing up children in the first few years is different from the way they bring them up in the later years. Okay. You need to sensitize the parents about, let the child be growing up independently and strongly. It's okay to say no. It's okay to tell the child that when I say no, it is a no and no compromise on that. So there are so many things that we have to educate the parents, because what's happening with especially the ones in the IT, because they come from these cramped schools, engineering college, IT job. That's the track. So
Cycle.
many of them, yeah, many of them have actually been, they're doing what their parents, they're doing whatever their parents have not done for them. So they're doing a guilt parenting and a compensatory parenting, which is a potentially negative combination, because of which children are exploiting the guilt parenting and the compensatory parenting. And like I say, children are like cats now. Cats have 9 lives, they say, no? Children have 9 different types of personalities. What they show to their peers is one thing, any age group. What they show to their parents is one thing. Even what they show to the father is one thing, mother is one thing, grandparents is another thing. Teachers, why are they becoming so manipulative? So they understood that, if I talk like this to mother, mother will listen to me. If I talk like this to the father, he will accept what my demands, whatever they are. These are the things that we have to educate ourselves and create a culture in the school that
True.
all of us have to understand what is the world they're coming from. If you don't know the world they're coming from, you can't hold on to math and science all the time. Math and science can't be the influencers. Your connect with them can be the influencer.
Absolutely.
So that's why research is very important. You need to
No,
collect
no.
data.
No, I think you really brought that point very beautifully, because I personally feel in our schools, I think one of the under sort of a focused area is research. Teachers do not do any kind of research. And I'm not really complaining. I wish that people do a little more research, because this is just a requirement of today's time, basically. You can't throw just random views, basically, if it's not backed by. So wonderful. I think that's a great observation there. I have a couple of questions, one which came on the chat. Then Manish, I'll come to you. Manish is raising his hand. So I think this is Miss Rekha. On the third priorities by ma'am, put first things first. What kind of conversation can we have with them, as in the parent community? They hardly want to listen to counselors or teachers, or listen and then come back to square one. Please share some tips.
So what we do in our schools, I can share this. Right at the beginning of admission, before a parent takes admission, we have an orientation session. We tell them what is the school about, what do we believe, how do we work with children. After that, we tell them only if you think this is a culture that you feel is important to your child, then take the application form. We don't issue application form before that. So that's the first thing we do. From there, after admission, before the classes begin in June, we have an orientation session about how are things going to happen every day, what kind of conversations we'll have with children, how we don't give attention to negative behaviors. And we give tips to the parents as to how they can also work with their children at home. That's the second part. Then whether it's annual day event or other events that we have, when we call parents, we make sure we create 15 to 20 minutes to 30 minutes, sometimes 1 hour too, where we talk to them based on our observations about children. We don't take names, but we share the case studies that we are observing. Like I take one undue advantage of my age. I'm very, very senior. Okay. So I tell all the parents, listen, I'm not talking to you because I'm the principal of the school or the director. I'm talking to you because I'm much older than all of you. Okay. And I'm telling you that the last 2 years, I've been talking a lot about disturbed marriages, how children of disturbed marriages behave in the school. And I tell them, guys, come on, you're all adults. You got married. You brought children willfully into this world. You have an ethical responsibility, if not anything else, to make sure that your egos are in the back seat and your responsibilities in the front seat for your children's sake. So from taking care of their married life to how to bring up their children to how we observe children in the school, I share with them. I share with them in these orientations that I also share without taking names about how a particular parent behaved in the school, asked questions in the school, and then I give a rationale behind it. So my suggestion to anybody, whoever asks this question, is that use the case studies or your observations of your school as your data to talk to the parents. You don't need to collect anything from anywhere else. How children There's this boy who came and said, "Ma'am, last night I could not sleep. Why? Both my parents were fighting throughout the night. I got so tired, so I came to the drawing room, I slept in the sofa." Okay? I say this in the parents' orientation, and I tell them, listen, this is what the child had come and said. Now, whether you fought or not, I don't know. I'm not asking you. I'm nobody to come and pry into your household. But I think all of us as adults have a responsibility to bring up children carefully. Okay? So I use all the data, case studies, observations as points of reference while working with parents or talking to parents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was a question by, I think, Miss Rekha. There are a few questions which have come on the chat, but I'll come to them. Manish, your question, please go ahead. Manish, you wanted to ask something.
Yeah. First of all, very good evening, sir, ma'am, and everyone.
Good evening, Manish.
I'm delighted to have your chats, and this is a wonderful session. Sir,
Thank
actually,
you.
ma'am, I have one question. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm a principal of Satyam Children Academy, Shahid Gaon Chandoli.
Okay.
It's a remote area school
Uh-huh.
where the parents are actually. My question is that parents are not easily available, and if you want to make some impact, we can't do that because the teachers are also not easily available in these areas. Because in city areas, the teachers are available, and
True.
here teachers are not easily available. Yeah, we make arrangement just for the school timing. After that, parents are not available. If you want to make anything, any changes, then we can't tell them. They are not using mobile phone properly. They get messages 3 days after once you send this.
I know.
So a lot of things are there. So can you suggest some ways, because you are so experienced, so that will really helpful to us. Thank you, ma'am.
So, Manish, can I tell you this? There are two things that I always say: circle of influence, circle of control. Okay. Now, where do I use this? Circle of concern? Sorry. Okay. We have many concerns that children are not studying, children are not doing this, not doing that, parents are not doing this, teachers are not there. We have many concerns. But where do we have our influence? Where do we have our control? We have control on what we can do. If you remember, I started this entire thing saying that I have control over myself. I can be proactive. I can put first things first. I can begin with an end in mind. Okay. In the same way, you should start looking at what are the things you can do within your influence. Okay. Oftentimes, parents won't be your partners. Oftentimes, teachers will not be like the way you want them to be. But there is something you can do as an individual. When you start the culture of whatever you want to do with the students, start small. 50 children, 100 children, whatever is a small number. Start small, start working with them. Sometimes you don't even realize your students will become your ambassadors. They will be your culture makers if you work with them on a mission mode. Don't always depend on parents. Use your influence on the children, and I'm sure you will find it more heartwarming and more accomplishing than working with parents. So always look at these things. Where do I have control and influence? Where is it that I have concern but I can do nothing? Like, for example, I am so concerned about the examination system in our country, but I have no control over it. CBSE conducts it the way they want to. But where do I have influence? I have the influence where I can prepare my children to write any exam, forget about board exam, any exam, without anxiety, without pressure, feeling that I know what to do in an examination. There I have a control. I have an influence. I work there. I don't work in area where I have no control, but I work extensively in area where I have the influence, I have the control, I'm proactive there. I begin with mind in mind there. Maybe you could look at what are the things you can do and start working from there.
Sure, ma'am. Thanks so much.
My
I'll
pleasure.
prioritize my concerns, sir. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Good. Wonderful, Manish. Thank you. There are a few questions, couple of them. I will quickly read from the chat as well, and then we will say thank you to Mrs. Murty. Will be dot on time. I think Dr. Manish K. Chaudhary is making an observation. I will read it out. My child doesn't do it at home. He is very, very innocent, never breaks any discipline. He has learned in school every negative thing. how to deal with such parents, ma'am. They never see any
Yeah.
fault in their children.
Parents will always, when they want to complain on their children, the child is a monster. But if they want to complain on the school, the child is an angel. So they over-angelize or demonize the child according to their convenience. But you can't say it because they're parents at the end of the day. But what I would say is, if a parent comes to me like that, my child is very disciplined at home, but in the school is very, but then I would say, who complained to you that the child is indisciplined in the school? Or I would say, I'm very perplexed why the child is behaving in two different ways, in the school and at home. Let me put the child under observation. I'll work with my teachers and see what is the problem. Because, sometimes don't get into conflict with parents. Parents are emotional things where the children are concerned. I would rather work with children thousands of years. But and by the way, in all my orientations, I tell parents, I can work with any kind of child. I can't work with parents. Because parents are the entire problem where children are concerned. I even show them this, that, see, when they come with you, they don't even wish properly. But when they come to school without you, they're the most beautiful children. So your influence, whether it's positive or negative, you decide. I leave it I use humor, by the way. I use a lot of humor. Then the parents also see the entire silliness of their parenting style sometimes. I do use humor. But however, these things you will get to hear forever. And you should know. I had I don't know if you're crossing time. I think we're crossing time now. Okay.
No, we have. Please go ahead. Yeah. 1 minute.
So there's this child, 2 days in a row, grade 1 child, went back home saying, I have headache. Okay. Now, third day, the mother asked, do you have headache? The child didn't say. The mother asked, do you have a headache? The child said, yes. That evening, they went to a doctor. Okay. First, they went to an eye specialist, eye checkup done. Second day, they went to a physician, done. Third day, they went to a neurophysician, MRI. Okay. Then a counselor, because nothing came up in any test. The counselor said, maybe there is pressure and stress in the school. Go and check up in the school. Okay, that's where the child is having headache. Now the parents come to me. All such parents, I love sitting and talking to them because I love putting sense into people. Okay. So I asked the parents to come. I said, okay, you did this, you did that. Why did you do? Third day, my counselor heard you ask the child, do you have a headache? You put words into his head before even he had headache, by the way. Okay. And then you ran around all the doctors. You didn't give him free time. You're so ready to believe because the counselor said the school is putting pressure. I have 24 other children in the same section who don't have a headache, who don't have pressure. Why should only your child have? Okay. So that day I let them go back home and I called them back after that to tell them that all that happened was his friends were not talking to him. 2 days in a row, his bench mates, the group mates, were playing on their own and did not include him in the play because he used a foul word at them that morning. This is the reason. And you went to MRI also. Okay. And the counselor so happily told you that the school must be putting pressure. This is the background to it. So, and I use this case study to tell all the parents, don't do over-parenting. Okay. And don't do under-parenting and helicopter parenting. Just be balanced parents like the way your parents were to you. Don't use Google and Western style of parenting and oversensitize your child in an Indian family system. Indian family system, we all grow up to be strong. So don't make a child so sensitive that you need counseling for everything. Okay. Why am I sharing this? All kinds of parents will be there. Whether they're urban, educated, globetrotters, they live in the same city. Everywhere I'm hearing the same thing now. And because I have the advantage of working in other countries, urban spaces in India, semi-urban, rural, tier 2, tier 3 cities, I work in all settings. So that's why I'm telling you, unfortunately, parents are misguided by their own ill information that they have. I think, I like to use Dr. Dr. Gandhi from Lucknow. Gaurav, you know him. He passed away recently. He uses this word that schools should act like lighthouses to a society. Schools have the responsibility to throw light on the society about what is value generation, what are human values. I think we as schools now also have to run parallel sessions for parents. Okay. And again, I use my humor. I tell the parents, you're only paying fees for your children's tuition fee. If I have to do a workshop for you, you have to pay a separate fee again. If I have to spend my time working with you, you need to pay a fee on that. Okay.
Correct.
But I think it is very important. All of us have to do that. Parent
Absolutely.
education.
Absolutely. Wonderful. In fact, since we are now out of time completely, and I believe there is no question as such which is left out, there are a few observations on the chat, but I think we have already taken them up. I think there was Muhammad Wasim, but you have already mentioned that your query has been resolved. So thank you. Perfect. I did not want to leave any points, so I'm just quickly having a glance through. More or less, we have covered everything. So firstly, thank you very much. Thank you, as usual, if I may say, lovely. It was like a complete 1 hour was like a siesta, right? I was listening to it very carefully. And in my own way, I would say it just went by. So thank you very much, because I think 90% of our audience stayed back, which is a testimony that everybody was really, really glued to the session. So thank you very much, Mrs. Murty.
My pleasure.
And thank you everybody who had joined us this evening on, in fact, I completely missed out wishing everybody happy Navratri and happy Ugadi, which is a southern, I think, a festival. So thank you very much, and please have a great evening ahead, and we look forward to see you very soon, right? And Mrs. Murty, thank you once again. Have a great evening.
My pleasure, Gaurav. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
And thank you, Gaurav sir, for providing us such a wonderful platform. Thank you.
Most welcome. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.